It all began with Princess Elian with her friends flying as they explored the outskirts and arrived at the kingdom as it was opened for them and they went in. Her friends wanted the princess to stay longer but duty calls, and she had to come up with an excuse that she is a teenager now and have responsibilities, making her friends disappointed, and they left. Nazara guided the princess inside the castle as she had to take care of the affairs of her kingdom and attend to her parents who were monsters. Princess Elian's parents traveled to a dark forest in the outskirts of town where a strange spell hit them and they were brought back as monsters, and Elian at a young age had to take up the king and queen responsibilities temporarily, like signing documents, attending event and inspections until they can find a cure for her parents. The general came around requesting to have an audience with the king and queen, but they didn't want her knowing the king and queen are monsters, so Counselor Beliner had to come up with another silly excuse, and the general had to leave, promising to return the next day. Princess Elian hadn't found a way to break the spell and lay on the bed with her pet when a message came from the royal messenger. The princess received a letter. The Oracle of the Suns and Moon informed her that they received the letter she sent to them and will be coming to her kingdom tonight, which was her birthday, to access the situation. For the first time, she had hope as she decides to inform the counselors. Counselor Nazara spoke with Counselor Beliner as they were fed up with hiding the king and queen situation, and as they believed there was no longer hope for them, decide to move them far away and make the princess queen. Princess Elian arrived, stating how the oracles are on their way to break the spell, returning her parents to normal. The counselors informed the princess of their plan, but decide to put it on hold to see if the oracles could cure her parents, but if not, she will be made queen. The princess celebrated her birthday with the counselors and just few guests. Her monster parents were also brought to the occasion. The oracles arrived in their majestic ride and the princess exchanged pleasantries with them. She introduced her parents to the oracle, but her parents seemed to be aggressive towards them, so she distracted her parents, pulling their attention away. The oracles informed them that her parents had been to the enchanted forest, and just as they were about to tell her how to break the spell, they were swallowed by the monster queen, but they used their magic to force her to spit them out. The princess parents chased the oracle around as they left their magic device behind and escaped, leaving the princess with no clues. The princess became mad at her parents as it was her only chance to break the spell, and they blew it. At night, the princess cooled off as she visited her parents. She opened their cages, handed them a share of her birthday cake, and apologized, explaining that it wasn't their fault they behaved that way since they didn't know what they were doing. She sang some songs and fell asleep, and on waking up she realized she had forgot to lock her parents' cages as she found them empty. It turns out her monster parents had escaped into the city, scaring everyone as the princess left with her pet to bring them back. The general was surprised to see a monster in the city and rallied her troops to capture them. The troops surrounded the monsters and were about capturing them when the princess rushed in, informing everyone that they were her parents. The counselors informed the general that they were changed by a spell, making her mad as she should have been informed earlier. The people gathered as they were scared to live in the kingdom with the monsters lurking around, but the general assures them that once the princess assumes the throne, the monsters will be sent far away, never to be seen again. The monsters were captured, and the princess, trying to figure out a way to save them, spotted an object in her pet rat's mouth, and as she forced it out of him, it turned out to be the oracle's magical device, and she was able to contact the oracles with it. The oracles told her this time she had to come to them with the magical device which they will use in saving her parents. The princess took advantage of the magic in the device and escaped with her parents. The general, on realizing what had happened, ordered her troops to go after her. During the pursuit, Princess Elian instructed her pet as it used the magical device to slow down the troops. Counselor Nazara and Beliner chased them from the air, and as Counselor Beliner jumped to get the princess, her pet used the magical device and their souls were exchanged. Counselor Beliner was shocked as he was now in her pet body, while her pet rat had taken possession of the counselor's body. Counselor Beliner was terrified as the pursuit continued, but the princess used the magical device, and they were able to escape the troops' sight. They crashed deep into the woods as the princess went to check if her parents were okay, and was also glad that they had made it. They spotted the oracle's home, and as the princess knocked on their door they opened, and were delighted to see her, but became terrified because she brought the monsters along with them. The princess assures them everything was okay, and handed their device over to them, asking them to break the spell, but they informed her that the device cannot break the spell, they just told her it can, so that she could bring it to them. The oracles informed her that only her parents could break the spell, and for them to do it, they had to embark on a quest to the dark forest of eternal darkness to find the Lake of Light. It turns out her parents had lost their sparks of humanity and were consumed by the darkness and will need to get to the Lake of Light to restore their spark. There will be beacons of light to guide them on their way. However, The oracle warned them to be mindful of the darkness in their hearts, cautioning that if they were not strong enough, it could consume them. With renewed hope, Princess Elian embarked on a quest with her parents as they followed the light beacon on their path. On the way, they spotted the troops and sought refuge in a cave. The cave happened to be mysterious as it showcased blue lights, the goodness in their heart, but Beliner wasn't happy as he speaks and released bad energy, hurting the king as he screamed, releasing more bad energy in the cave. The princess silenced them, stating that they can only say nice word, letting the good energy out. They were still venturing on that path when the king and queen got into a huge fight, releasing bad energy. The princess, distressed, released an enormous amount of bad energy as the darkness came and was about to consume her. However, the king and queen, on noticing what was about to happen, were able to speak for the first time and spoke good words, releasing good energy all over the cave, and they were able to drive out the darkness. Princess Elian was extremely glad that her monster parent could now talk. Although they still didn't remember anything, it was a huge progress for the princess, and they continued on their quest to the Lake of Light using the light beacon as a guide. They arrived at a hill and didn't find any more light beacons, so they had no choice but to hang around, and while they were awaiting another beacon, Princess Elian tried to see if her parents could remember her name. After singing some songs together, the monster queen was finally able to voice her name, and at last, the long-awaited beacon of light finally appeared, guiding them as they continued on their path. It turns out Pet Beliner had been leaving trails of nut behind, as the general was able to find the trails and ordered her troops to follow it. On the way, Pet Beliner got caught by the princess as she forced the nuts out of him. They appeared to be on quicksand and began sinking, so they moved to nearby rocks to avoid sinking further. The monster king and queen got into a fight as both of them didn't agree on which way to go, putting their daughter in distress again as the darkness appeared, and the troops also caught up to them. In an attempt to escape, they plunged into the water where the princess spotted a baby in danger, urges her parent, and they rushed to save the baby. The princess was able to save the baby bird, and her good deeds dismisses the darkness for the time being. The troops almost caught them, but they created an illusion and was able to escape into a cave. In there, Pet Beliner and the princess were separated from the king and queen, and as they were walking through the cave, an army of rats surrounded them and handed Pet Beliner a meal. He ate and loved it as he was now welcomed as part of their family as they took him around to see their king, and after paying his greetings, they were led out of the cave and were reunited with the monster king and queen. They played around with the other animals as the king and queen had flashes of memories and were able to remember everything. Princess Elian was so delighted with the new development and hugged both of her parents. They followed the next beacon and finally made it to the Lake of Light. The princess jumped into the Lake of Light with Pet Beliner, but as the monster king and queen were about jumping in, an image was displayed and they saw how they always fight and argue against each other, and it was because of that the darkness consumed them on that fateful night, turning them into monsters. The king and queen figured out they couldn't step into the light because they can't tolerate each other, but the princess tried to convince them to at least try. The king and queen didn't listen and were leaving, infuriating the princess as she lashed out, stating that they only cared about themselves and never seemed to consider her. The princess was filled with dark rage, inviting the darkness, and it began to consume her. The monster king and queen were trying to figure out a way to stop it when the troops arrived with the general, and together, they put a muzzle on the monsters and successfully captured them but couldn't find the princess. The troops were transporting the monsters to a faraway place when Pet Beliner was able to mobilize an army of rats he met earlier on and ordered them as they attacked the troops. During the fight, the pet rat in Beliner's body was able to open the cages, freeing the king and queen, and as they spoke to the general realized they were not monsters anymore, and she followed them to save Princess Elian. The darkness consumed the princess as she saw flashes of her parents, always fighting as she felt they do not love or consider her. Her parents arrived and noticing how the darkness was transforming her, used their last strength to move the lake, and it poured directly into the darkness, opening up a path for them, and they were able to speak to the princess, telling her how they had always loved her. The princess met with her younger self, and as she remembered how she had always been happy while she was younger, and the feeling of joy dismisses the darkness in her. She embraced her parents at the Lake of Light, releasing an enormous amount of light, and her parents transformed back to their human form as the princess rushed to embrace them. Pet Beliner's soul was also transferred back to his body, and the troops were amused. 1 year later, things really turned out great as the king and queen built separate castles to avoid disagreements. However, the princess had a room in both castles. Counselor Nazara used a flare signaling an emergency, and as the princess rushed to find out what was going on, it turned out to be her birthday as she was surprised by everyone. Everyone celebrated with her, even the oracle attended the occasion. She celebrated her birthday with her parents and everyone, and that was how the movie ended. Please like, Share and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more mind-blowing recaps like this, and also use the super thanks icon to support our channel. Thanks for watching, bye.